What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing a triple buff tree team with Sudowoodo, Trevenant, and then both forms of Shadow Exeggutor, first with the Kanto version, and then a few bonus battles towards the end with the Alolan version. Now I know Sudowoodo isn't actually a tree, it's a rock that's meant to look like a tree, but its coverage almost perfectly combats all of the grass type weaknesses, so it just had to be on the team. Now believe it or not, Trevenant actually felt like the weak link for this team, because initially I tried to use it as a safe swap, and there are just so many Furret in this meta and other normal / dark type Pokemon, often being part flying as well, which just completely shuts down that Trevenant. Potentially something like a Abomasnow would have worked as another buff tree option, but either way, it doesn't really matter too much. I was actually very surprised with how much better the Shadow Kanto Exeggutor feels, as its pacing is so much better this season, with of course Confusion gaining more energy and then Seed Bomb also costing less energy. Now before we get into the question of the day, I want to know what kind of teams you guys actually want to see on this channel, because yesterday's video was a massive project for me. It was as spicy as a GBL video can get, with so much variety and nearly 40 minutes of fast-paced gameplay, but right now it sits at the very bottom in terms of its performance compared to my 10 latest uploads, which also includes a lot of other underperforming videos. Is it getting to a point where it's just too spicy and the gameplay is suffering as a result, or that you guys are just so used to the insane spice that these kind of videos just don't stand out anymore? Please leave constructive feedback in the comments, as obviously I am trying to make the best content I can while still trying to do things that are unique to my channel only. Anyways, with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. What level are you now after the level 80 update in Pokemon Go, and are you happy with the XP scaling / tasks that come with these new levels? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, and excuse the very low elo of course. I did mention that yesterday's video I was using some absolutely insane teams, and as a result, unfortunately, by the end of it I did drop into the 1900s, but either way, we swap, we make a catch, but we find ourselves up against an Araquanid. By the way, I did use Trevenant initially as a safe swap. These battles are slightly out of order, and the first time I used Exeggutor as a safe swap, the opponent has Araquanid in the back to just completely destroy him, but we do grab a shield advantage as well. This is just going to be a Bubble Beam. Bubble Beam is super effective, but it doesn't deal too much damage to the Sudowoodo. Now we're going to fire off a Rock Slide here. Rock Slide, of course, got buffed this season, and it gets the KO despite the debuff to our attack stat. They're going to come in with a Clodsire, and I will be shielding the first charge move. I recognize Goodra very likely only going to have resisted charge moves to throw into my Trevenant, as typically you will see Aqua Tail and Thunder Punch, maybe even a Power Whip as well for coverage, but either way, all of those moves are resisted, so I might as well double shield in the matchup up against this Clodsire. As well, this Clodsire is actually on Mud Shot rather than Poison Sting, which is something I actually did not realize until like towards the end of this game, but either way, Shadow Ball gets the KO there. At this point, I'm looking at my Trevenant's HP thinking, you know what, we are still very healthy. That is when I realized, yep, they've got Mud Shot. Either way, we make a catch here. I don't think I needed to. Trevenant should be tanking a Sludge Bomb as it is only neutral, but either way, we get the Shadow Claw farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG to up in there, into the next battle. We're going to see a Ferrothorn in the lead. Now, this is definitely tricky for us. I'm going to throw one Rock Throw, then Safe Swap into my Shadow Exeggutor, and the opponent is going to fire off a charge move. The opponent's actually on Acid Spray there, which is not ideal for me, but it does make sense to drop my defense there before swapping into a Clodsire, because now the opponent can, if they want to, shield once, tank a Seed Bomb, and then commit to a full Poison Sting farm down. But the opponent actually going to double shield there, back-to-back Seed Bombs. That's fine with me. Now, we're in a bit of an awkward situation here. Do I come back in with the Sudowoodo? I actually choose to come in with my Trevenant, but we've seen Acid Spray, so I realize I don't really need to worry about the threat of like a Flash Cannon or something from the Ferrothorn. So now I'm going to swap catch the next charge move as they go for another Stone Edge, and we're actually able to bait out a Quagsire, which is fine with me, because if the opponent overfarms here, I'm going to reach a Trailblaze. Trailblaze, super effective. It gets the one shot there. Now, the opponent will be coming back in with the Ferrothorn, and they will get a very aggressive Bullet Seed farm down, but that's fine. I can just no shield this first charge move. Trevenant is just one Shadow Claw away from the next Shadow Ball, so I will just fire this off immediately. Of course, they've just double debuffed my defense, but it doesn't matter. Clodsire will not be reaching two more charge moves, so of course they will be firing off the first one. I can safely shield, and again, we've now got the energy for a Shadow Ball. I will throw this straight away, and of course, Shadow Ball from this range takes out the Clodsire, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to up there, into the next battle. We're going to see a Greninja in the lead, and honestly, a Greninja is a Pokemon that I didn't really think about when team building, and it is honestly one of the worst core breakers we could see. It's also pretty common in this meta as well, so not ideal for me. Of course, they are going to have water coverage for the Sudowoodo, but also that dark typing for both the Trevenant and the Exeggutor in the back. So very tricky, but luckily for me, the opponent randomly swaps out that lead matchup. They're going to fire off back-to-back rock sides. Trevenant still going to reach a second Shadow Ball here. Shadow Ball number 2 gets them very low, but they do actually just barely hang on. So at this point, I'm going to come back in with the Sudowoodo. There will be no shielding. And then, of course, I expect Greninja to come back into this matchup. So they come back in with Greninja. They will still outpace me here as Rock Throw not gaining energy particularly fast. I'm going to shield the Night Slash. I'm going to fire off a Trailblaze. And then I'm going to throw one more Rock Throw and then swap into my Exeggutor. So I'm able to swap out here. Of course, I'm not catching a charge move as Night Slash is going to hit for super effective. But I do get the confusion through, which is helpful for me as they come in with a Skeledirge. Now this one, unfortunately, I do have to throw the Psychic straight away, which does get the KO there, but it does also mean Greninja going to be outpacing me to that next charge attack. And of course, Night Slash gets the KO there. We can come back in with the Sudowoodo. It's very close, but they do reach yet another Night Slash. And unfortunately, Night Slash takes out the Sudowoodo, and I do lose that game. But GG to up on there into the next battle. You can see Clodsire in the lead. So, of course, we are going to resist the fast food damage, but likewise, they are also resisting the rock throws. I'm going to swap out here, hoping to catch an Earthquake onto my Trevenant, and I'm able to do exactly that. Now, the opponent is going to stay in initially here, and they are actually going to fire off another charge move. So, at this point, I'm going to no-shield this. I feel like I should tank a Stone Edge, but no! Trevenant doesn't tank that, so that is just a mistake on my end. I don't know what I was thinking there. Obviously, I don't really use Trevenant very often. I didn't use it back in its prime, and I haven't really used it much since, but either way, we are going to shield up the Stone Edge, commit to a full Confusion farm down, and let's see what Shadow Exeggutor can do. Of course, we got a lot of energy. They come in with a Vigoroth, another Pokemon that got double buff this season, still nowhere near as good as it was back in the day because counter is the main issue for it. It does take 6 counters to reach that first Body Slam, but either way, it is still a lot better than it was last season. We're going to shield here, and the opponent has already double shielded their Vigoroth, so at this point, they must be weak to Exeggutor in the back. I go straight for Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb gets the KO, and there it is. They've got a Mudboy, they've got Whiscash, and of course Seed Bomb from Shadow Exeggutor, double super effective. It gets the one shot, and I'm able to take that game. So obviously after letting Trevenant go down there, that actually worked out in my favor as Exeggutor swept the entire team. But into the next battle, not a great lead matchup for me. The opponent is going to meet my Trevenant safe swap with a Wigglytuff. Another issue with that Trevenant. There's just so many normal types out there at the moment. You can see 2 Seed Bombs are not going to get the KO here. They're not going to threaten a shield. And of course, Shadow Claw is double resisted. So at this point, I think we just let Trevenant go down here. The opponent is at least forced to throw a charge move, as maybe I could reach another charge move there. But either way, they're going to throw. We're going to come back in with the Sudowoodo. I can get the Rock Throw farm down, but I don't get a huge farm down either. We swap into Exeggutor, and the opponent's going to have a Furret in the back. So, of course, not ideal for me in the slightest. I don't think there's any win conditions here, unless they throw a Swift. If they go for Trailblaze, that is a smart play, which they do, which means, of course, I'm now not going to reach a departing Seed Bomb. I can go for a farm down here, but it doesn't really matter. Of course, I would have liked to come out with a Trailblaze loaded, but either way, it doesn't actually make any difference as Golurk still would have had a shield. They had a charge move, I believe, banked already, so unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We can see a Jumpluff in the lead, so that is a good lead matchup for me. They're going to say swap into Clodsire, and I will respond with my Trevenant. Now, I come in with Trevenant just because I don't want to use any shields here, and Trevenant can at least tank a single charge move, whereas Exeggutor, whilst yes, we hit for big damage with those confusions, Sludge Bombs and Poison Stings are going to hit for super effective. At this point, I'm probably going to use one shield at most here. Going to shield up the Sludge Bomb. I'm now going to look to overfarm, and I'm going to throw a Shadow Ball on the CMP tie. Shadow Ball probably won't quite get the KO here, but it does grab the final shield. So at this point, I'm going to let Trevenant go down here. Once again, save a shield for my Exeggutor, and we're going to come in and go for one shield and then go for a full Confusion farm down. So the opponent is actually going to swap out there. So I'm going to bank a Psychic, swap into Sudowoodo. Even if they go for an Energy Ball here, I should be able to tank it. They actually go for an Acrobatics there. So potentially Aerial Ace and Acrobatics. Either way, I'm going to fire off a Rock Slide before they reach a second charge move. Rock Slide gets the KO there. We're going to force the Clodsire to throw a charge move of their own. But we should be able to now come in with Exeggutor and go for a full Confusion farm down. Now, what do they have in the back? The opponent's going to have a Lapras in the back, and that is certainly game over. I'm resisting the the fast move damage. Seed Bomb, big damage there. We can fire off a second Seed Bomb straight away. And of course, super effective. It takes out the Lapras, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see a Guzzlord in the lead. So, of course, this is definitely where we want to see it. However, they are going to very easily outpace us here. And I believe they probably win the one shield scenario quite easily because they will get to 3 charge moves before I can even get to 2 rock slides. Now, potentially could have gone for Trailblaze, look to boost up my rock throw damage. That way, even if they do shield, which they were very likely to do, I would at least do more damage with those rock throws. But either way, I'm actually going to no shield this. Now I'm going to come in with my Trevenant. And I should put them into range, but I can get the KO with a resisted charge move. However, I'm not certain if a Seed Bomb will KO. So instead, I'm full sending the Shadow Ball. But since they've seen the Trevenant here, they're probably just going to double shield. I should have just baited with the Seed Bomb. Either way, I'm going to no shield the next charge move, which is also a mistake, as that just does not do... Oh, sorry. That does more damage than I was expecting. It does not allow Trevenant to reach another charge move. They're going to come in with the Clodsire, and this is still fine with me. We can go straight for Psychic here. Psychic is going to be hitting for super effective. It gets the KO. They're going to come in with a Wigglytuff, and I can just barely reach another Psychic. Now, does this get the KO? Psychic barely doesn't, and unfortunately, they do leave with a charge move loaded. Of course, Swift, even though it's double resisted, does get the KO there, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But definitely could have played that one a lot better than I did there. Either way, into the next battle, we're going to see Ariados in the lead. So I'm happy with this lead matchup. The opponent is going to be safe swapping into Toxapex. So I'm actually going to stay in initially as I am resisting the Poison Jab damage. I'm going to fire off a Trailblaze. Trailblaze, going to be no shielded. And now I will shield a Brine. Now, technically, I can tank a Brine here. And maybe I should have done so, but either way, I'm now going to swap and catch the next Brine onto my Trevenant. However, unfortunately, the opponent's switch clock is now going to be up, so I can't go for a full farm down. Instead, they swap back into Ariados. We're going to fire off a charge move here, very likely a lunge, and it is the lunge. And here, if I go for a Shadow Ball, unfortunately, I don't think I even reach a departing Seed Bomb. So if the opponent does shield and commit to a farm down, another big mistake on my end. What am I doing right now? I'm just playing so poorly, but we are now going to come in with the Shadow Executor. Now, this is really risky. I expected Trailblaze, so I could have no-shielded, and they do actually go for Trailblaze, but they swap back into Toxapex. We get a full Rock Throw farm down, and their final Pokemon is going to be a Greninja, but we're so far ahead on energy. I'm going straight for Trailblaze. Trailblaze does big damage. It gets us the full farm down, and that's going to be game over. The opponent needs to get back-to-back charge moves with that Ariados, with us dealing super effective damage with both our remaining Pokemon, so they do just concede the match. But GG to a trainer into the next battle. We're going to see a Typhlosion in the lead, but a safe swap into Zweilous, and this is a really problematic Pokemon for me. I need to stay in with the Sudowoodo. I expect they're going to shield here, so last time I did, of course, go for Rock Slide up against the Guzzlord in the lead. This time, however, they no shield, they call the bait, and now I'm going to have to double shield here, but I don't really know what Sudowoodo can do. But to make things worse, they come in with a second Dark and Dragon-type Pokemon, and there's just literally nothing I can do here. I'm going to go for Rock Slide and swapping back into our Trevenant here, and we do bait out the Typhlosion. However, it does not really help me. The opponent's not going to throw a charge move, instead committing to a full Incinerate farm down. I am able to bait and then get off a second Seed Bomb, but Seed Bomb still does not put them into farm down range. And at this point, I think I'm going to come in with my Executor, hope they throw straight away, but they don't. They go for the extra. And at this point, this is going to be game over. The opponent full sends the Blast Burn. We can come in with Sudowoodo, but they already have a second Blast Burn loaded. Blast Burn easily takes us out there, despite being resisted. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But of course, very tricky backline for my backline to deal with. Either way, GG's to that trainer into the next battle. I'm going to see a Camerupt in the lead. So very interesting lead matchup here. Of course, they're only taking neutral damage from the Rock Throws. However, I am still resisting the Incinerates, and I recognize I can commit one shield and go for a full Rock Throw farm down. But they're going to come in with a Sceptile. Now, of course, Executor going to take double super effective damage from the Fury Cutters, so I don't really want it aligned there, but I will kind of need to swap out here just in case they do have another Pokemon weak to the Sudowoodo in the back, which they do, but unfortunately Trevenant not having much luck here as we see a Shadow Pidgeot on Gust. We are at least able to reach a second Seed Bomb here. This will put them into farm down range, but we have to choose which Pokemon we come in with. Now, the opponent has a lot of energy here. I'm actually going to come in with Executor. If they full send a Brave Bird here, this confusion might get the KO, and it actually does take them out there. They come in with the Sceptile, unfortunately, just barely not able to swap out in time. But Leaf Blade doesn't get the KO there. I'm able to reach a last-second Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb takes out the Sceptile, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle, and we are going to be using the Shadow Alone Executor for this battle. We're going to see Wigglytuff in the lead, so this is fine. This is definitely where I want to see it for this team, especially with this new version of the team where Executor is also really going to struggle up against the Wigglytuff. They go for an Icy Wind. I'm just going to boost up my attack straight away with the Trailblaze. Trailblaze going to be shielded, and if they commit to a full farm down, Sudowoodo will actually just barely reach a second Trailblaze, which is huge for me. Trailblaze gets the KO there, but they come in with a second Fairy type. Now, they've also got Ferret, but luckily for me, I don't have the Kanto version of Executor. We've got the Alolan version, which is going to be part Dragon, and as well, they go for a Trailblaze there. That's double resisted damage. That is absolutely fine with me. I fire off the Seed Bomb. I can reach a second Seed Bomb now, and Seed Bomb is going to put them into range where Trevenant can go for a resisted Shadow Claw farm down. They do reach another charge move. Doesn't matter, even though they're boosted. It's just going to be a resisted non-stab Trailblaze. They come back in with the Galarian Weezing, and I am thinking about it. I am going to shield. It's a brutal swing there. I'm now going to look to overfarm just slightly. Fire off the Shadow Ball. Does this get the KO? Yes, it does. I'm able to take out Galarian Weezing, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. I see Greninja in the lead. So, of course, not a great matchup for me. I am going to stay in. I'm going to look to try and catch a Hydro Cannon onto my Trevenant. However, if they bait here, this is pretty much just game over. And they do. And not only that, they get the attack boost. Oh, things going from bad to worse here. We're going to go for a Seed Bomb. The opponent probably able to commit to a full farm down here. But no, they actually don't. They are going to fire off another charge move. Night Sash, number 2, gets the KO, but they get a second boost. Are you kidding me right now? Okay, well, we're going to come in with Executor. At least I am double resisting the Water Shuriken damage, which is ideal for me, but they will reach yet another Night Sash, and they are quad boosted in their attack stat. I have to shield this, and now they're going to come in with a Salazzle. You know what? We're full sending Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is unfortunately shielded there. We swap back into Sudowoodo, and they've got a perfect response in the form of Togedemaru. I can go for Rock Slide here. Rock Slide, not going to do much damage. Unfortunately, whilst I will kind of put them into range where, since they have to go for Wild Charge, I can come in and go for a full Dragon Tail farm down. But unfortunately, whilst Executor, yes, very attack weighted, Salazzle has a higher attack stat. They've got a Poison Fang loaded. So despite the fact that I leave with a Draco Meteor, unfortunately, they win CMP, and Poison Fang easily gets the KO from that range, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Whiscash in the lead. So of course, not an ideal matchup for me. I'm going to say swapping into Executor, and I'm met with a Crocodile. So this point, I did not want to throw it on CMP just in case they opt for the extra fast move. So instead, we're going to get an extra fast move through. I'm going to go for one Dragon Tail, not throwing on perfect timing. However, I can go for a Seed Bomb, grab a shield there, and then full send the Draco Meteor. Draco Meteor is going to unfortunately be shielded by the Crocodile, but that's okay, as now we can come back in with the Sudowoodo. I do not need to shield anything. They've already revealed Flamethrower. Their secondary charge move is going to be Crunch, and whilst they do drop my defense there, doesn't really matter too much. I'm now going to swap into my Trevenant, and luckily for me, this time Trevenant is going to core break their team. They come in with a Cresselia. I'm going for Shadow Ball, and Shadow Ball from this range should be enough damage to get the KO there. They come back in with the Whiscash. I can reach a Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb, double super effective. It actually doesn't get the KO. However, I don't need to shield this. Even if they full send a Blizzard, I could just Rock Throw farm them down, but we get the Shadow Claw farm down instead, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there, into the next battle. We're going to see a Drapion in the lead. So, a bit of a problematic Pokemon for me. I am going to stay in initially, and Sudowoodo, whilst yes, Aqua Tail is going to hit for super effective, it does have some okay-ish bulk to it. You can see my IVs aren't the greatest because I believe this was just a shiny that I caught at this exact CP, which is why I have double moved it. But either way, we are going to go for the Rock Slide on CMP, shield up the next Aqua Tail, and then I'm going to look to catch the next one onto Executor, but I do swap out one turn early to get an extra Dragon Dragon Tail in for free as we swap out there. But unfortunately, even with the energy advantage, the opponent will be outpacing me with a shiny Crobat, which of course is now running Air Cutter. Air Cutter doesn't get the boost at least, which is ideal for me. We're going to come back in with the Sudowoodo, of course, and I can reach a Rock Slide here, winning CMP up against the Crobat. That is kind of surprising, since Crobat, not exactly the bulkiest Pokemon either, and their final Pokemon is going to be a shiny for Alligator. So a triple shiny team on the opponent's end. I'm going to shield the Hydro Cannon here. I know, of course, that is going to be resisted. However, I kind of need to protect the Trevenant. We're going to go for a Seed Bomb. They actually no-shield that, and my Switch Clock is coming up very fast, but will it come up in time here for me to make a catch? I go for Seed Bomb. It grabs the shield, and you can see I was clicking on that switch, but it just barely didn't come up in time, and as a result, Sudowoodo comes in. They're able to fully farm me down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's up on there into the final battle of this video, and we see a Fearow in the leads. Of course, this is definitely where we want to see it for this team. The opponent staying in initially, then safe swapping into Drapion. Now, I make a very risky play here, but I realize Trevenant has literally zero play into that Fearow, so I don't even care about switch advantage. I'm just looking to sacrifice that Trevenant. So here, gonna fire for Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb actually grabs a shield, however, which is definitely not something I was expecting. However, at this point, I'm just gonna let it go down there. Crunch, of course, gets the KO, and whilst yes, Exeggutor not going to have the best matchup up against the Fearow, I can at least hit for neutral damage rather than double resisted with the Shadow Claws. So here, going to go for Rock Slide. Rock Slide going to grab the shield there, so the opponent really wants to get rid of my Sudowoodo, which of course makes sense. Either way, I'm going to look to make another catch, but the opponent, I guess, either trying to make a catch of their own or potentially just swapping out, anticipating that, swaps into Morpeko, and by the way, that was a double resisted Aura Wheel. That still did over 50% of my HP. That is insane. But I can fire off the Seed Bomb. Seed Bomb gets the KO, one more Dragon Tail, and I will reach a second Seed Bomb. Now, Seed Bomb is resisted here, but it still does decent damage. It forces them to throw, and that's going to be game over. Fearow not going to reach another charge move, so Drapion, whilst they do have an Aqua Tail, doesn't really matter. I could actually afford to no-shield that, but I'm going to shield. I'm going to play it safe. We come out with the Rock Slide loaded, and of course, up against this Fearow, there's going to be more than enough damage to take out the Fearow, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.